Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share the pros and cons and celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. Today, we have William Durham back to discuss how the podcast is going so far. But before we get started, we are sponsored today by Fortress, the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for today's affordable operators. Fortress revolutionizes affordable management and reduces applicant move-in time to save money, generate cash, and drive your teams to success. And don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like and subscribe. So, William, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Well, you've been here the whole time. Let's be clear.
Well, back on an episode.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I get to work with you behind the scenes
Yes.
on the episodes, but it's always fun getting to be here and record one with you.
Yes, I know. Well, it's interesting because you get to sit and watch and listen literally in the room as we're recording the podcast. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about how it's gone so far and what you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm excited to be here. I think this is a great idea. You've gotten a few interviews done. And so I think an episode where we can come together and talk about those interviews and talk about some of your takeaways and some of the moments you found most interesting during those is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, same.
So I mean, we can, well, and I'll take a step back. What was interesting, and we didn't really plan it, but those first few conversations that you had all really centered around staffing struggles
Yeah.
and team expectations, and things like that. And it's interesting because what listeners might not know is that when we invite guests to come onto the podcast, we really give them the opportunity to talk about what they're finding most interesting or
Mhm.
the biggest struggles or problems in property management right now. So I think there's something there. I think that
Yeah.
those three um, ladies all had very similar things that they wanted to have a conversation about. So
Yeah. Three very powerful, experienced, successful women in multifamily property management who have responsibilities that include members of teams. And we open the door for them to talk about whatever they're passionate about, whatever is on top of their mind right now. And it was all about people.
yeah,
Even our last episode about the brand was about people. So I agree. It was
yeah,
a really consistent theme for us in our first three episodes.
yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we talk about them,
Yeah.
and it all kind of flows well together. So we can probably just dive right into it.
Yeah.
So the first interview that you did, your very first one, besides you and I chatting on that very first episode, you got the chance to chat with Stephanie Lehman, and that conversation was all centered around like staffing struggles in property management. I'm curious, like, what were some of your takeaways from that conversation? What'd you think?
Yeah, I loved my conversation with Stephanie, and honestly, um, I'll have a personal moment. When Stephanie said back to me, when I opened the conversation and said Stephanie's been a mentor to me, and when she started speaking and said, "I've seen you as a mentor too," I was really taken aback, and it almost like I almost struggled to continue the conversation because I was so overwhelmed by that and grateful for her saying that, and shocked honestly because she truly is a powerhouse. I mean, she really is. Like, I
Agreed.
mean, there are some people who almost like physically fear her. Like, she's a powerhouse. She really is. And so for her to say that was just so flattering. I don't know that I've deserved it, but she's a really incredible person. And what I learned quite a bit, especially when her talking about the interviewing process. I loved she, you know, interviewing and hiring is a technical skill that we don't always like hone because we don't spend that much time doing it, right? That's kind of one of those like reactive things that we do. Um, and so when she was describing their interview process, I was really impressed with the thought that's gone into it. So one of the things that she said was, and I'm quoting loosely here, but when a new team member starts and they're getting into the role and things are hard and it's not going very well, she said that when those people come to her and they're talking about the difficulty of the situation, she's always like, "This didn't come to you day one. Like, the difficulty of what's happening here on site didn't come to you day one. It came to you, like, day 0." Like, we talked about this in the interview process. During the interview process, I pulled up my screen, showed you how the property was or wasn't performing, asked you, if you could get it to the goals that we had set for the property and how you would make that happen. And it's just even, like, being that clear and that transparent during the interview process, and then being so thoughtful to have 2 different sets of interviews, one a technical interview and then one a cultural fit
Yeah.
interview. Like, think a lot of times we go through the process of having multiple rounds of interviews, but we're not super specific about, like, what exactly we're hoping for each round to deliver, and so I thought both of those were really, really incredible.
Yeah. I agree, and I think there's some crossover too between, the conversation you were having with Stephanie, and then we'll talk about Jenny, shortly, but just in the cultural fit, and I think
Mhm.
that conversation keeps coming up, but I listening to Stephanie talk about, like, some of the struggles she has with interviewing people and people just, like, not being prepared for an interview, not showing up, um, dressed for success. I don't think you need to be in a full suit and tie, but show up, one what is that quote? Oh gosh, I can't think of it right now, that, "Dress for the job you want,"
Yeah.
you know? Like, just be prepared, but I also think, she mentioned, just, like, you don't know anything about the company, you don't know about anything about who you're interviewing with, and
Yep.
I struggle with that too. I feel like that's one of the first questions I ask people when I interview them is, "What do you know about us? What do you know
Yeah.
about our company?" I think it shows a lot, and how passionate somebody might be. Um, Anyways, I'm going on a bit
No,
of
I
a
love I love that, I agree. I think what you're saying goes back to being really intentional about the interview,
Yeah,
right? Making sure that you ask, like, what are the things that are important to you? If one of the things that are important to you, William, as a hiring manager, is to make sure that someone shows up prepared to everything that they're going to do when they work for you, so then they need to be prepared in the interview, then being really intentional about that and, like, how do I know that they're gonna show up prepared? One
yeah,
way is to make sure they did their research before they came in to interview with me.
yeah,
So, I think it's so smart.
true. I have a question for you. This will probably put you on the spot a little bit, but one of the things that Stephanie mentioned, on her call was just interviewing and hiring and the struggles post COVID, and
Mhm.
her feelings on how things have changed a bit. And I think some people are feeling that. I'm sure some listeners can also agree, but I'm wondering, like, have you experienced that, at all in your role, whether it's directly you looking for somebody or just indirectly hearing your teams who are looking for people?
Yeah. It's interesting. When you first asked that question, the immediate response that popped into my head was that actually it's created more difficulties for me as a human, not necessarily in the hiring process, but I think that through COVID, we have heard a lot. There's this new, like, silent quitting, and
Yeah,
right, and of course everybody's fully remote, and so now it has created this thought in my head sometimes where it's like, if I don't feel like someone, where I don't see the value of their 40 hours a week and I'm not completely aware of their productivity, then I start to have, like, doubts about that. And
yeah,
I think I'm doing the same thing with, because I actually think I said this with Stephanie, that those candidate pools are tired. And that's not really fair. I mean, even in our industry, some of Fortress's competitors have had some pretty massive layoffs over the past few years.
yeah,
And so to say that those candidate pools, because those people immediately are like, I need to get my resume posted on LinkedIn, I need to get it here and here and here. And so to say that those candidate pools are tired, that's not even fair either. I think there's a little bit of, like, negative energy still floating, like, internally for myself that I need to work through, that was really created through the COVID atmosphere.
yeah. It's interesting. I think so many things have changed, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of things have changed, but I don't think that you can. Oh, I think it's hard to say it's like one specific thing.
Mhm.
So many, all of our lives changed so much during during
Yeah.
that time. Um, well, do you have anything else like with that interview with Stephanie that you want to share before we move
Yeah.
on?
I think there were two other really important components of the conversation I have with Stephanie that I think are worth mentioning. So first
Yeah.
and foremost, the aligning strengths with job requirements and specializing and proactively seeing someone's preferences and strengths. I think that anyone who knows Stephanie would not inherently say that she is a super like warm or comforting or like caring person in a personal way, right? But yet everything that she mentioned in that way was so kind and empathetic and personal and caring because she understood that to bring out the best in people is to focus on their strengths. Even when she was speaking so in depth about the lease up managers who then wanted to stay with that asset post lease up, and she's like, "I've seen you in action for the past year. Like, you are not going to want to sit at a stagnant property. Like
Yeah.
you at a you know stabilized." Brand new asset that doesn't have that much excitement or energy or a massive goal behind it. I've seen you and I've seen who you are as a human and how you operate best. And we need to find another lease up for you because that's who you are as a person. And to put that much energy into your team members, to see that, to care about it, and then to try to, even outside of their own wishes, figure out a way to support that in them, I think is really so caring and compassionate. But it's from Stephanie's perspective, have a feeling she wouldn't even agree with me on that. She would say it's just what's in the best interest of the business. Like it
Yeah.
really is. To otherwise, she knows she'll lose that person to the next lease up that comes along because she's going to get bored. So Stephanie would say it's in the business interest, but it really is so thoughtful and intentional with your team members. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's important to know your team members' strengths and where
Mhm.
they because sometimes they don't see it in themselves. I know I've had moments of doubt in my career and um you've always been there at my back. No, but I think it's important, so then you think about the business, but you think about that individual and you try to help them grow and put them
Yeah.
into positions where they're gonna really succeed and hopefully not leave you
Yeah.
for another opportunity. So
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you have to, when you can see those things in your team members, you have to lean into them in order to, I think, continue to make them, to ensure that they want to be there and that they want to be successful in the company that they're in.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. What
Yeah.
else?
Oh, the last thing is Stephanie's story about the bitch.
Yeah.
Um, and if we have a clip, we can play it. But she had this fun story about going on site one day, which I love that Stephanie does still go on site and watch the lease ups happen. And like she said, make copies of driver's license or whatever it is that she can do to help. But she tells this phenomenal story about walking into the office and being there for a few hours and realizing that one of the women working there, three women working in the office doing the lease up, and one of the women was just an extreme bitch. Like she was terrible to everyone around her, to the applicants that were coming in the room, to the coworkers, and she was like, "Well, we can't continue to do this." So she pulled the woman aside and she's like, "This is not how we should treat people." And the woman responded and said, "We don't need them. They need homes. Like they need homes so badly." And she was like, "Oh, I don't." And Stephanie's response was, "I don't care. That's not how we treat humans here. Like that's
Yeah.
not how we're going to do this." And so the woman came back the next day and did it again, and so she fired her. And I just love the honesty and openness and like just addressing the elephant in the room really quickly and being open about the fact that there are some really bitchy people out there. But you choose whether or not they impact you, your teams, your clients. And Stephanie Tripp made the decision there. And I think it was really great.
It was certainly the right decision. I'm just kind of shocked that anybody would say that to her or
Yeah.
to anybody.
I
Honestly,
know,
just that
right?
it come out of your mouth. Especially like fast forward to the end of our episode with Stephanie. She finished with a story about like one of her favorite moments in property
Yep.
management and was, someone going into their apartment and having a beautiful brand new apartment with granite countertops
Yep.
and never had this before, never had access to this before. And it's like, that's what it's all about,
Yep.
right? It's getting people into homes um, and somewhere they feel comfortable and somewhere they
Yeah.
feel safe and really excited to live. So it's shocking to hear that somebody would say something otherwise.
I know. But also, is it really?
I mean, I mean, to have the thoughts is one thing to say. 'Cause listen, I've worked on site. Some people, it's easy to get burnt out, but listen,
Oh my gosh.
you gotta but ultimately, you gotta remember why you're there.
Yeah. Well, it's ironic that you said that, it's like to have the thoughts, but whether or not you say them, because this leads really well into my first point of recapping my conversation with Deanna,
Yeah,
which was about people speaking up.
yeah,
Of course, you need to have the right person and the right thoughts for them to encourage them to speak up. But Deanna said something that I really believe in, and I think you do too, which is that we hire great people. We're not necessarily hiring just to fill a position. Like,
yeah,
eh, when you hire to fill a position, you are likely interviewing quite a few candidates who could physically do the job. But the decision that you make on hiring is for the right person. And acknowledging that, embracing that, and encouraging those people because I hired you because I think you're a great person. That means I want you to use your voice. I want you to speak up. And I think so often it's very easy for us and employees to think I just need to stay in my lane and be quiet and do my job and not make any trouble. But Deanna was talking so much about encouraging people to speak up and that because we hire great people, which I think is just such a valuable lesson.
yeah. No, it is. I just had a complete my brain just went completely, left. I apologize.
That's okay. I think that one of the things that Deanna even went further into is that the way that you can help people speak up is by ensuring that they understand the value that they bring to the organization, because that's where people get really excited and like passionate about the job that they do. And
Well, and I apologize, but
yeah,
that's I think what I was gonna say to what you were saying at the beginning with Deanna is you're like, "Oh, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way people want to work or the way in a lot of ways, the way people want to show up for work, right? The people who are, I just wanna come in, I wanna work my 8 hours, and I wanna clock out, I wanna go home, I want no other responsibilities beyond that." There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But then there's the people who are like, "No, I wanna, like, work 80 hours a week, and I wanna work all the overtime, and I'm super passionate," and I think it's understanding that person and understanding what their goals are so
mhm,
that you can make sure that the role that you're filling
mhm,
is gonna be right for them because it
yep,
may not be. And it's
yep,
like, "Hey, like, this is gonna require a lot of time and dedication, and
yeah,
I don't know if that's what you want. So why
mhm.
would I wanna put you into that position?"
Yeah, I think that's so smart. One of my favorite companies to look at in how they hire is Southwest. They're very prescriptive about the interview process to ensure that they are making offers to the type of people who will fit well in the specific roles that they have. A really great example of this is with their baggage teams. They always ask the question during the interview, would you want overtime? Or how many hours a week would you work if you had, unlimited hours you could work? And the only people that they end up making the offers to are those that are clearly motivated by extra hours and want to work the extra hours, because the baggage teams tend to have a lot of like on call situations, or during the holidays, there's a ton of extra hours that need to be worked. And so they're very intentional with that interview process and making sure that it aligns to who that person is as a human, like what the job is going to require of them. So it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it's fair. Anybody who flies somewhat regularly knows
Yeah.
delays are inevitable.
Yeah.
Changes are inevitable.
Yep.
So you need people who are in those roles who are flexible
Yeah.
and can, yeah, move as things change.
Yeah.
Pick up the slack for sure.
Yeah. Another really fun thing Southwest does is anytime they're interviewing for their flight attendants, they always ask them to tell them a joke. So during the interview process, like,
Oh,
tell me a
really?
joke. Because, Southwest flight attendants are supposed to be like the most entertaining flight attendants, right? They're the ones who, once everybody's seated on the plane, I've had this happen so many times and I fall for it every freaking time. But
Is that
everyone's seated and the flight attendants will be like,
they did somebody drop this?
yeah,
Yes.
yes, like $100 bill. Like somebody drop $100 bill and everyone looks up and they're like, got your attention. Let's start the safety briefing.
That just happened with me last week flying home. I was like, and I fell for it too. And I was like, I knew it was
always
coming.
do. Yeah.
As soon as I looked up, I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Yes. But they asked the question in the interview, like, tell me a joke. And because it's so important to them to find people who like are lighthearted and who find the fun in things and who can roll with the punches, who can be asked in an interview to tell me a joke. If someone did that to me, I'd be like, oh God, can I like show you how to build a spreadsheet instead? Is that okay? Right? I mean, we're just different people. I should not be a flight attendant.
Yeah, I don't think. Fun fact: I wanted to be a flight attendant for many years.
I can see that.
Yeah, in my like late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
Desperately. Um, it's tough to get into that world.
Is it? I
Yeah.
don't know much about it. I feel like you'd be phenomenal, but I'm very grateful you didn't get into it. I have a feeling we would not be sitting here today.
I'd be on an airplane.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. So back to DeAnna.
Yeah.
What other thoughts on that interview?
She actually mentioned a book that I have not read yet that is on my list now, The Friction Project. And
Mhm.
what I loved, the takeaway that she had from it that she mentioned here is how important it is to determine in your company what are the things you want your team members to be focused on and doing, and what are the things you don't want them to be focused on or not doing. And that a huge key into allowing the space for those two things to exist, for them to do what you want them to do and for them to not do what you don't want them to do, is to manage this balance of friction, which is for anything that you want them doing, make it really easy. For anything you don't want them doing, make it really hard.
Yeah.
And I haven't really dug into that yet, but it is something that I wanted to bring up because it was really insightful to me and made me pause and think, I really want to go read that book. And I really want to think a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to look into it either. But just hearing what you said and thinking back to what DeAnna said, it's interesting, and I'm curious, like how you go about making things really hard for the things you don't want them doing.
Mhm.
Like, how does that look like? How
So-
does that work?
So, something that came to my mind when I was spending a little bit of time thinking about this is, for example, meetings.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about how much they hate it. It's like we have too many fucking meetings. I hate the meetings. They're not useful, whatever. So, there are so many productivity books that say that you should never have a meeting unless that meeting comes with a very specific goal and a very specific agenda. So if you think about it, if we made everyone at our company have to fill out a template of information before they scheduled that meeting, that would make it hard,
Yeah.
right? Now all of a sudden it's hard to set a meeting, whereas before we're just popping off meetings left and right. But now it becomes hard. I think that's an example, or at least it was one that came to my mind. But I do think that there are probably many more out there, which is why I want to read the book. But I just wanted to throw it out there.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I'd like the template idea. I wouldn't be booking any meetings.
Maybe that's the point.
But I do need less meetings. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm typically not the one scheduling them. So
Yeah, that's fair. But what if the person who was scheduling them for you was required to do that, and so now you felt better about it? And again, it would probably cause them to schedule less meetings. So I
take
think
it.
that's something. I know, agreed. So I love that. Another thing that DeAnna said was that I thought was really enlightening was that the world is changing and evolving, and if you're not changing and evolving, and you're not learning, and you're not trying new things, then you become obsolete. And I love that. And I'm the first to say that the biggest improvements that I've made in my life and the things that I'm most proud of and the biggest accomplishments have come through periods of extreme growth and challenge. And so I couldn't agree with that more. Like I certainly look back and while it would be phenomenal to be 30 again, not 40. The lessons I've learned over the past 10 years and the growth that I've had and experienced, like I wouldn't go back to being that person again, pretty much for anything. Like I am so much happier with who I am today. And it's because of all that change and evolution, and which usually comes and it's pretty difficult. But yeah, so anyway, I love that quote.
No, I like it a lot because I think you can take it 2 ways, right? Like, growth and learning opportunities not only professionally, like, in your life, but I think, like, personally,
Mm-hmm.
learning, especially as I get older, like, learning more about myself and the things that I need to do, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
for my own sanity and for
Mm-hmm.
my own sake. So I think it's, like, learning to take care of yourself,
Yep.
so that you can continue, to go after the things you want, both professionally and personally,
Yeah.
but also just in work, it's so important, and I'm sure every industry experiences change and the need to continue um, learning new trends um, and new opportunities like property management, technology, and property management, especially. Like, how can we rely on new technology to potentially make our lives easier, but also identifying, is that actually making our lives easier? Is this
Mm-hmm.
are these new trends or these new technologies actually helping, or are they making things worse?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's important for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's so interesting to turn that conversation toward technology and whether it's helping or not. But I love what you said about making sure that you are okay first.
Yeah.
I have finally gotten to this. I'm a giver by nature, and my biggest strength and probably also one of my biggest weaknesses is a sense of responsibility. That it's my job to make sure that everyone else is happy and that the environment is good and that the energy is good. And w- I've finally learned that if my energy isn't good, like if I haven't done the things that I need to do to make myself centered and calm and good, then I am doing a massive disservice to all those people I'm trying to serve because I'm not fully showing up for them. So it's the whole like a lot of airline analogies today, but it's the whole like put your mask on first before you help your children. Right? I don't know what's going on
Maybe
with
you
that.
should have went into the airline industry.
Anyway, but I'll roll that in a little bit to the last point from Deanna, which is the large conversation she and I had around the attitude that she brought to Elmington Property Management, the intentional attitude and energy that she brought to her most recent job, which is in bringing curiosity and humility. And I don't want to dig. That episode was a phenomenal conversation around that. And I would recommend anyone to listen to it. But the big takeaway is we all think that it's what we do and accomplish that determines our success or where we go in our careers. And I would argue that in Deanna's case, she had already done and accomplished so much that we knew what she was capable of. But it was that energy of curiosity and humility that allowed her to create a feeling with other people that other people felt good about her and energized by that curiosity and humility and just felt m- just made the experience of being around her feel so good that it was that is actually what led to her promotion and her success here, and it's going to continue to lead to her success here, even less up the chain and even more down the chain to where people are going to love working for her
Yeah.
when she brings that energy to the table. So,
I all I can do is agree with you. I think everything you said was spot on. I don't know if I have
yeah.
anything to add to
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think that leads us into our last one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Jenny
Yes.
McClain.
Oh my gosh, she's a force, man.
Yeah.
Her re-listening to that podcast was just it was such a different energy. She's intense, which I've always loved about her so much.
Yeah.
Um, and but honestly, one of the biggest takeaways for me was you just listening to the first like 20 minutes of our conversation. Her success, so much of Jenny's success has come from connections,
Yeah.
like being connected in Nashville with the people who are making moves in her industry. I mean, how many people, can't even count. I stopped counting how many people she mentioned on that episode that have helped her or led to her success or have led her to where she is. So I think I'm not good at that. Like that's not actually the part of the job that I really enjoy or am good at. I'm very much an introvert and, I've majored in accounting. Like I like working with numbers and spreadsheets. Like that's what I do. So I'm not great at that. And so I think my success has been partially in spite of that. But her success is hugely drawn on that. And so I just think it's a really interesting takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, she knows so many people. I known her for a while now, but
Yeah.
I feel like her name, if I'm in any sort of circle with property management professionals who've been in the industry a long time, they know who
Yeah.
Jenny McClain is.
They know that name for sure. Yeah. And I think, and then I think that leads well into the next topic for her, which was passion. Which I think if people know Jenny McClain's name, they're going to also be like, oh my gosh, like she's a force. Like she's so passionate and
Yeah.
just an incredible human. But she said something on the podcast. She's like, I only want to be around passionate people. Like if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then like GTFO. Like I
Yeah.
just want to be around passionate people. And I tell my son this sometimes, like the 5 people that you choose to spend your most time with wherever you're at, like work, school, home, professional, personal, whatever, like those are the people who are going to have the most input and impact on who you are. And so I loved her saying that. Like if you have intentionally designed your life so that you are only surrounded by people who are extremely passionate, that's just going to continue to build your passion and your ability to generate and build and create in that level of passion. So I loved it.
Yeah, that entire conversation you had with her was all about passion.
Yeah.
Passion for the people she wants to surround herself with, but I think she brings that into her role, and, being passionate about the brand, these properties, what you're selling, what your residents, your applicants, just
Hmm.
passion across the board, which I think is great, and I also kind of thrive on being around people who are passionate and people
Yeah.
who are making boss moves, you know? Like you, like Jenny, like, honestly, these 3 people we've been talking about,
Yeah.
people who just aren't, afraid to push the boundaries and say exactly what they need and what they want,
Yeah.
and it's worked out very well.
Yeah. Well, that's because that's who you are. And
Yeah,
again, that goes back to the like the people you spend the most time with have the biggest impact on you. You 100% push the boundaries. And in your new role, you weren't in it for a few days and you were completely changing how everything was being done and making progress immediately and making changes and being demanding and like I mean, you brought an intensity to the conversation and
well,
railroaded a few meetings necessarily, but because you're so passionate. But it does, I agree, it all bleeds off of each other. If passion is the expectation of the executive team, then that is what you will see. And
yeah,
anyone who's not passionate or not vocal or not moving the needle, that person probably won't stay. So,
fair.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then I also really loved, Jenny was here to talk about the brand. And let's be clear, her specialty is marketing, and she's a marketing genius, in my opinion. I have worked with her on several marketing projects. I think she's a freaking genius. But what I really loved, and I was a little shocked by actually, is that she said, at the end of the day, the people are your brand. So getting the people right is 90% of the job when it comes to creating a brand for your property or for your property management company, which I really loved.
yeah, I kinda talked about it earlier, really, but it also talks about here, it comes back down to it's finding the right people, and she mentioned this too, finding the right people for that property, for that organization, for that whatever that need is,
Hmm.
who is gonna be passionate about what you've created as the brand, as the voice for that property in this case.
Hmm.
You don't want you've spent so much time and energy crafting the perfect message and experience, and then if you don't get the right person, all of that just it's lost.
Yep. Yep.
So I think
Yep.
it's so
So well
important.
said.
Listen, she did such a great job while she was here. When after we left, I went and looked up all of their properties, and I was like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll move.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
and they're gorgeous. I went
Yeah.
to their websites. I went to these properties, and um, gorgeous. I mean, just
Yeah.
everything's. I was like, hmm. She made me fall in love here, and then their branding and their message
Yeah.
online made me fall in love even more. So I
Yeah.
was like, maybe.
I mean, she said it well, like 505 is a lifestyle. Like it's not an
Yes.
apartment community, it's a
And I was
lifestyle.
like, I need a lifestyle.
There you go. She sold the brand.
I know. It's like maybe I do. So
That's
It worked.
incredible.
It worked.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
well, it didn't work fully. I didn't move, Jenny. Sorry. Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. Which I love that. It leads well into kind of the next part of the conversation that really stuck out to me with her, which is like the authenticity of the brand, right?
Yeah.
So like the lifestyle, right? And the conversation that we had around Dallas and Edge. And if we have a clip, we can play it around her describing that brand and that campaign.
Yeah.
And that lust for living, right? And the email that she got from Tony, which was like, I needed to be bigger, more like, and I quote, you need to find your porn face. Like, but it was authentic. That's what Nashville was at that time. Like there was,
Yeah.
I mean, like Nashville was becoming a really up and coming and sexy city. And like there was a lot happening and he wanted to lean into that. And I think like leaning into the authenticity of the city and the lifestyle it's appealing. I mean, obviously it was appealing to you. It's appealing. There's no getting around
Yeah.
it. So.
I am a sucker for any sort of advertising that's unique and different.
Yes,
And
same.
but you have to. Oh, so yeah, but you have to be able to follow through. You can't just say that you're doing these things. You can't just like slap
Yeah.
a funny
Yes.
sign on the side of the board and you walk in and you're like, what in the world? Where am I at? But with Jenny, it's the full thing. You're getting all of that,
Yeah.
which is important
Yeah.
because you'll lose me very quick.
Yeah. If you're not living up to the
Yes.
hype that you're setting.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think the last takeaway for me from the conversation with Jenny was really, she is that person who has all the connections and who has made so much success and so much transition in her career from those connections. And she said that like you have to find the rocket ships. Like find the people and the companies that are so open and passionate and like focused on creating and building ultimately success, but just creating and building is really all you need is people who are so passionate about that. Those are the rocket ships and like find them and jump on board and it'll be an experience like you've never had before. And I just think that's like, I feel like you and I ever since we've been working together, have been doing that together, creating rocket ships and finding the people who want to be a part of that and enjoying the ride. So
Love that.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way to wrap up.
yeah.
I love this has been a fun experience
Yeah.
learning and trying to figure out how to do all of these things, but being able to speak with people and really connect with those in this industry who have a lot to say but don't always necessarily get the platform to say it. But where I want to wrap things today is a question to you. Because this is new, and I know this interviewing and podcasting is way outside your comfort zone. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like, how has this experience been so far with these first few interviews? You've got them under you now. Are you feeling confident, ready to go, ready to podcast full time, quit your day job?
No. Oh, it's a good question. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable question. I will say I am not uncomfortable interviewing people. In fact, I would argue that I spend the vast majority of my days, quote, interviewing people, whether it's in our executive team meetings or if I'm on a sales call or if I'm in a meeting with members of our team talking about product. I'm just always asking questions, just trying to understand what's at the heart of the issue, what we're trying to solve, how the best way to solve it is. And that's going to come through questions because I'm never the smartest person in the room, ever. And so that part has felt really, really comfortable, actually, just sitting here and asking questions. The part that's very uncomfortable is that I don't even use social media really at all, actually. It even has to be like really intentional for me to respond to someone's post on LinkedIn because I don't look at LinkedIn unless I get a note in my inbox that's like some so-and-so commented on you. For example, Stephanie Lehman has been amazing in promoting this. She's done it twice and she's talked about like my friend Kerri Davis in her podcast. And I've gotten the little pop-ups in my email that are like, someone mentioned you on LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. And I go look at it and I want to respond, but I'm like apprehensive about responding because I'm uncomfortable in that. I don't have Facebook. I don't use like Instagram or I just don't do any of that. So, and even the vast majority of my LinkedIn content is not really mine for the most part. Like it's our company. So I know, shameless. But so that's the part that's uncomfortable for me. But I'm getting used to it. I will
Yeah.
say, listening to the episodes, the first 4 episodes that we recorded, yours and mine, and then of course these 3 incredible female executives that we've brought in. I feel like I've learned a lot, even going back and listening to them. So I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
And I really hope our listeners are enjoying it too. I'm also learning a lot about myself. I say a lot more than I thought I did. You think that that's a habit that you kicked in public speaking in college? I didn't kick it, apparently. So I need to keep working on that. I also say I love that a lot, which is also not necessarily a natural statement from me. Usually I'm
Yeah.
more like, I disagree. I don't understand that. So I'm like, whoa, I'm picking a lot of people who I just inherently agree with,
Yeah.
which I need to change. We need to bring in some people where I can get some like
Get feisty with.
dissent. Yeah. We need to get a little bit of dissent going on here. So I will say, I'm enjoying the output of it. I'm still getting used to the public exposure of it. But I'm really enjoying the conversations.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
Everything's going wonderfully.
Well, again, I wouldn't be here without you, so thank you.
Well, I do what I can. All right. Well, that's all we have.
All right.
So hopefully, you'll just keep improving, and people will keep listening in.
I love it.
And I hope they do, because we got some great interviews
Yeah,
coming up.
we do. And I look forward to the next one of these with you. This is
Perfect.
fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, William.